Inclusion to me means everyone and all people. I was lucky enough to grow up overseas, so I've seen different cultures, I've witnessed different communities. I've been really lucky enough to also experience a lot of the world through sport. So for me, that was a really natural conduit into communities by joining a club. I'm really passionate about sharing that with other people and ensuring that all people can share what they're interested in and find a sense of belonging in their community.
Working with such a close-knit team, everyone really relies on everyone else. And what that really means is not only do we hold each other accountable, but we're fully supportive of everyone's projects and everyone's tasks that they're given. We have fun, a lot of fun, but at the same time we do a lot of work. And if you don't have that balance, not only in your life but in your workplace as well, it really does affect that productivity. But one thing that I can say at Inclusion Solutions is when we do make that promise, we do get things done.
I absolutely love it. It's probably the best job I've ever had in my life. It's really exciting, and it's really good to see that a lot of people are passionate about inclusion and that we all are going towards the same common goal.
We have a really good team dynamic. There's just this underlying theme of respect for each other's beliefs, but it all comes together into this really great team.
I love meeting new people, so it's really exciting to work in an industry where we get to meet people from all walks of life and support them to be more inclusive. It's great, every day is completely different. We all get along really well and we all have different backgrounds, and I think that's what makes us a strong team. We're really diverse in where we've come from, but we're all working towards a common goal.
We're across best practice not only when it comes to access and inclusion, but we also understand what community is and we understand what the challenges communities are facing. We're in a very interesting time, both politically and financially, and being exposed to community life really is the forefront of where connections are made.
Over the next few years, I believe there is a greater need for inclusion solutions to exist. Communities are segregated. We've got political leaders and others that are driving segregation and really division in community, and as a result, the work that we do is really around unifying and bringing people together. So it's less about highlighting the difference and more about actually getting people together and sharing in the things that bring us together, our commonalities and our shared interests. Nala Kadich, Wajak Mort, Kayan Kadak, Nija Buja. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the beautiful land on which we meet today, the local Wajak Noongar people. I'd like to pay tribute to elders past, present and future. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the team of Inclusion Solutions, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to the 5th Social Inclusion Forum. The theme of this forum is indeed connection. Speaking of connection, we have over 190 people registered for the forum today. A little fun fact to start us off. Collectively, my calculations tell me that you've travelled a total of 7,613 kilometres just to be here today. That's 15,226 kilometres by the time you get home. It also tells me that we should be hitting up BP and Shell to sponsor this forum. Interestingly, as another fact, we have over 40 people attending today from regional WA. I'd like to do a shout out to the 3 people that have travelled the furthest to be here. Rani, 423 kilometres from Albany. Helen from Mininu, 383 kilometres. And Katie from Augusta Margaret River, 273 kilometres. I think that deserves a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Denver De Cruz and I'll be the MC for today's forum. It's my 9th year at Inclusion Solutions, and it's brilliant to see the best part of 200 people here sharing in our vision for inclusive and welcoming communities across WA. I'd like to start by acknowledging a few special guests. Our partners at Beyond Bank, Katie Voss, Georgie Nicholas and Holly Timperley in the room. It's wonderful to work with Beyond Bank and have them on board to support this great forum. It's ongoing partnerships like this that help us build the capacity of the sector that we operate in and we're delighted with Beyond Bank's ongoing support. So ladies, thank you very much for your support. CEO of Australian Inclusion Group, Paul Flay. We have representing National Disability Services, Kelly Cade. Managing Director and Director of the Bank of Ideas, Maria D'Souza and Peter Kenyon, who is also recently acknowledged for his significant contribution to the community with an Order of Australia medal as well. So I think that deserves a round of applause there in itself. Well done, Peter. The Director for the 30-foot drop, Ben Aldridge. CEO of the Wheatbelt Health Network, Harry Randhawa. CEO of Auspire, the Australia Day Council, Morgan Lewis. Director of Regional Services at the Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries, Mitch Hardy. CEO of Telethon Speech and Hearing, Mark Fitzpatrick. And finally, on a personal note, my beautiful wife and my little princess, Demi. Thank you for coming along. A little bit of housekeeping, guys, to start us off. So mobile phones, if you wouldn't mind just taking a second and just making sure your phones are either off or switched onto silent, that would be great. The bathroom facilities are just around the corner, so if you walk out the door, turn right, down the end of the corridor, you'll find those facilities there. In the unlikely case of an emergency today, the meeting point is across the car park on the grassed area over there. I'd just like to also remind you that it's a non-smoking venue today as well. So if you do feel the urge, once again, across the car park would be a great spot for that as well. Today we have 4 brilliant speakers. If you feel inspired to make a change and you feel like you'd like to make a commitment, we've got a series of postcards on your table. What we would love with those is for you to fill those out as a commitment or something that has inspired you that you're going to continue to do or start doing. Please put your address on the back of it and put it in the post box outside the room. What we will do with that is we'll come back to you in 6 to 8 weeks from now just to remind you and check in and see how you're going with that as well. We also have a frame with a bubbled logo, the Inclusion Solutions logo outside. What we would love is for you to take a few words and put down there on there what you think social inclusion means to you. Courtesy of our partners at Beyond Bank, we also have 2 tickets as a lucky door prize. So that's the first prize, 2 tickets to the Fremantle Dockers versus Essendon at Optus Stadium. Also, courtesy of partners Manchester United, the second prize will be a Manchester United hoodie, a scarf and a water bottle. And the third prize will be a Manchester United t-shirt. So we'll draw that at the back end of the forum today. Just a reminder, as with the other 4 forums as well, we have photography and a video option as well. We want to make this an ongoing opportunity for people to learn from. So in the room, we have Phil. Phil's our wonderful photographer. I was going to say beautiful, mate, and that you are too. So you might see Phil, he might grab you for a photo in front of our media wall as well. We'd love to share this. Also, please tag us in on your photos that you take today as well. So you can find us at Inclusion Solutions WA on Facebook. And just a reminder, at the back of the room, we also have G. So G, thank you very much from Marcello Productions for being here today as well. A little bit of an overview for today. Shortly, we'll have an acknowledgement to country by Kobe Morrison. Followed by Christy Jolly, an inclusion consultant at Inclusion Solutions, discussing the theme, connection. Christy will be followed by our 4 presenters for today. Brad Scott, Australian Paralympian and Pararoo. Jennifer Irvine, public health researcher and lecturer in Indigenous health. Paul Holliday, founder of the Human Excellence Project, a project changing lives in the northern suburbs of Perth. And finally, Steve Morrison, school counsellor and ex-National Engagement Manager for Headspace and Lifeline. Following the presentation, we'll do the Lucky Door prizes, and then we'll invite you to some food and drink and to network at the back as well. I'd like to start by introducing Kobe. Kobe's a 25-year-old Bibbulmun Noongar who was born and raised in Perth. While he studies an English major at UWA, Kobe spends his spare time playing music and engaging in a wide range of community projects that have earned him the 2018 NAIDOC Youth of the Year Award. Please welcome Kobe Morrison.
Kaya. Kaya Kwabish Kora. Wanju Wajak Nunga Buja. Nyan Jeb Nija Nalang. Windang Bujarak. Nuna Kwab Kerala Wer Kerlak. Nyalang Mila Bidi Kwabadak. I'm guessing that you may not understand everything that I just said. Basically, I said, hello, my beautiful friends. I welcome you all to Noongar Buja on behalf of my elders and my family and my extended friends. I hope that from today and from the last, few days and years, we have a beautiful pathway forged, hopefully together. Before I continue, because I have a little bit of time, I want to teach you guys a couple of words in Yunga if you're interested. Good, I'm happy. All right, so we already know what kaya means. Shout it at me. What does kaya mean? Hello. It means hello, yes. I want you guys to repeat after me. Kaya. Nyan. Quirl. So basically, I told you guys how to introduce yourselves in Yunga. So kaya means hello, nyan means I or myself or me, and quirl means name or label. All right? And so I'm going to get you to repeat after me, and then at the end of it, I want you guys to state your name. All right? So kaya. Nyan. Quirl. It's a pleasure to meet you guys. I'm going to teach you guys another 2 words also. I could keep teaching you words all day if I had the chance, but I'll teach you another 2 words and I'll leave it there. All right. Nija. Bao. Nice. Nija means this or here. Bao means individual or person. All right. We utilize this one to introduce a friend. All right. So I want you guys to keep a friend in mind, and I want you guys to repeat after me and then state that friend's name. Okay. Nija. Bao. Very good. It's good to see that people have friends here. I'm pretty stoked to be able to see a couple of familiar faces in the crowd myself. It makes me slightly less nervous. So you're probably wondering about this guitar on my back. One of the main things that I do specialise in is Aboriginal engagement and teaching culture through the best form that I know how, which is music. And so I want to teach you guys how to sing a little song. You're probably familiar with the song. Can I do this? Can anybody recognise these lyrics? Yeah. All right. Do I have enough time to go through call and response with each line? All right. I'm going to get you guys to repeat after me. You are at Wayan. Wayan Bort. Bandang Mundang. Murichabin. Nice. And then you repeat that part. Ye Nyang Kira. Not bad. Woronol Jurabin. It's a lot of taken, I know. I'm sure you guys weren't really expecting to learn another language today. Nit Jiri Jiri. Nyang Nyang Kalak Nyat. Quabe Quabe Yeri. Kana Jil Warrenkin. Wula. Nija Nyalang. Badif Nunokau. You get all that? Very good. All right, so I'm going to go through this song, and I really hope that you guys sing along. I'd rather that you guys gave it a try and get it wrong than not try at all. Okay? This is what I do. I do a lot of workshops in primary schools. This is what I say to all the kids, and I mean, it's a message that needs to be taught everywhere, you know. So we're going to sing it twice through in Yunga, and then we'll sing it through in English. Yeah. You are Wayan Bor. Bandang Mundang Murichabin. You are Wayan Bor. Bandang Mundang Murichabin. jiri jiri, nyang nyang kalak nyang, kobe kobe yeri, kana jilwarankin, wula, deja nyalam bari nunuka. Alright, give it a go. You are way young boy. Bandam undam, muri chabin. You are way young boy. Bandam undam, muri chabin. Yenyang kira. No jurabin, jiri jiri, nyang nyang kalak nyang, kobe kobe yeri, kana jilwarankin, ula deja nyalam badin. Don't worry about a thing. That's enough. Good. Singing, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Woke up this morning, smiled to the rising sun. 3 little birds sit on my doorstep, singing a sweet song, a melody pure and true. Singing, this is my message to you. Beautiful. I would very much like to thank Inclusion Solutions for bringing me on board to do the Acknowledgement of Country. It's an absolute honour. I really, really appreciate their cause. If you wish to find any information, feel free to talk to me after the forum. Otherwise, we have plenty of Facebook pages and we have plenty of websites that you can find. Just Google Perth Aboriginal Reconciliation Choir or Carnegie, which is another one that we're doing in Fremantle. I hope you have a wonderful day. Order.
What a wonderful way to start us off. Kobe, that was absolutely brilliant, mate, and a great start to this forum today. Once again, hands together for Kobe Morrison, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to our first of the speakers today, Christy Jolly, affectionately internally known as the Balls of our team. Christy has been with us for about 4 years, and many of you will know that Christy's a familiar face. Christy's done a lot of really important work right across Australia and hails from the wheat belt, but I'm sure she'll tell you a little bit more about herself. So welcome aboard, Christy Jolly.
Thank you, Denver. And thank you, Kobe, so much for that wonderful acknowledgement. I think that's really helped calm my nerves a bit, so thank you for that. So, connection. This is the theme of my presentation today. And what I'd like for you to start doing is by closing your eyes. I want you to think about the band AC/DC. Think about what a music lover, somebody who loves ACD, what does that fan look like? Think about their gender. What are they wearing? What kind of hairstyle do they have? What kind of shoes are they wearing? Open your eyes. Now, what you've just done now is a coping mechanism that all humans do. We put people into boxes to help us with survival techniques. We think, all right, well, this person looks like this, therefore they might behave this way, therefore I will not or will interact with them. So my story of connection today is about music, not AC/DC, but my favourite genre of music, emo music. I'm glad I got laughs. I was hoping there wouldn't be crickets. So I am a massive emo music fan, and I have been for over 12 years, and one of my favourite bands was touring America when I was in America a year ago. And for the 5 weeks that I was there, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Am I going to see this band? They're not coming to Perth. I need to see Panic at the Disco. So I made the decision I was going to go by myself. I wanted to draw the attention of the lead singer because I love him, and I wanted to create a sign. The trouble is that I was going to the baseball the same evening, and the baseball Dodger Stadium wouldn't allow me to take in a sign. So I reached out to the online community, and I found a person who said, yep, no worries, I'll take your sign for you. So on my way to the baseball, I met up with this stranger, and I dropped off a sign to him, and I went off to the baseball, and a few hours later, I caught up with him. Here's my sign. So if you're the person that went, woo, I hope you get my reference here. Awesome. So the power of connection brings people together from across the world. I was by myself going to this venue with thousands of other Panic at the Disco fans, but the person that it brought me to was art. Now, looking at us, you wouldn't think that we would be people that would connect with one another. Art has recently turned 40 years old. I'm 27, so we've both gone through our emo phases at different times. But the power of how we can come together based on what connects us rather than what makes us different is what this forum is all about. And Art and I still talk, and as a result of me wanting to share this story with you, I found even more connections with him. He also is a passionate advocate for people with disabilities, for inclusion. He has a younger brother with a disability, and we both love all kinds of different music. There's so many things that bring us together than superficially looking at what an emo lover might look like, and I held back on my eyeliner today. I really wanted to do it. But if we take away those superficial things and the things that we do that are our immediate thoughts around what a person looks like, there is so much depth. So what I want to do today is there are volunteers from Inclusion Solutions out in the crowd. Each of them have a ball of yarn, and I have challenged myself to connect with 180 of you. So what I'm going to do, I had to do that because Denver called me the boss. It was a deal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a series of questions. If the question on the screen is something that you connect with me on, I'd like you to raise your hand, and one of the staff members is going to pass you a ball of yarn. So hold on to that and pass it on to the next person who has their hand raised. Now, my first point of connection when I'm looking for connection is this question. Who's visited 2J? Awesome. Okay, great. Yep. All right, we're going to move on to the next question. If you haven't gone to 2J, you should. It has the biggest Christmas shop in Australia. Who loves brunch? You can raise your hand again. Okay, next question. Who loves to dance? That's all right, I think people are. I don't know what mic I am. at school. Yeah, I'm one of those weirdos. Oh, thank you. Who loved maths at school? Who has a niece or a nephew? Oh wow, that's a lot of us. Okay. So, is there anybody that I haven't connected with yet? Okay. Oh, all right. So the people that I haven't connected with yet, these questions are for you. Have you played hockey before? Okay, so we'll make sure that we get the string to those people, please. Who is in love right now? Oh. Are we connected yet? Can we get one to this lady here in the middle? All right, am I connected to everyone now? Everyone? Okay, awesome. I'm going to flick through my questions. I didn't think I'd get through them this quickly. That's awesome. So I wanted to leave it on passionate about social inclusion. I was thinking, well, we're all going to be on for that one. But my final one, who was happy with the result of the 2018 Grand Final? Now, as you can see, in just under 5 minutes, we've connected. I've found a connection with all of you. But how do we find that connection when a person isn't as open and as willing to be vulnerable as I just was? So I want to take you through the 5 B's of being connected. Step 1, be approachable. And what I mean by this is we're all people that work in communities in some capacity. So if we're trying to break down those barriers towards inclusion, how are we being approachable for that person? Are we dressing in a way that makes us look like we're on the same level as them? So if we're going to work with a sporting club, are we going in our corporate attire like what I'm dressed like now? In my heels and people going, probably don't want to interact with her. So thinking about those things, looking at our body language as well, because the words that we speak are only 8% of the way that we communicate. It's more about our body language and our emotion. The next step, be present. We live in a digital age where we always have our mobile phones in our hands. Put them away for a moment. Think about how you would like to be treated. Do you want somebody picking up the phone? You have to be completely there, listening with cause, listening to find out what that person is telling you. That leads me to be empathetic. So I touched on 8% of our communication are the words. 38% of that is around emotion. So for a lot of us, we go into a community and we think about what we think they need or what we know that they want. Let's put that aside and sit down and listen to what they're telling us. Be empathetic to their experiences. Find out what their barriers are to inclusion from their perspective, because every single person is completely different. Be open to connection. As I said, I'm very open to connection here today. I wanted to work with you all to find that connection. But we need to break down those judgments, get rid of those unconscious biases that we have, and be open to connect with one another. And finally, be proactive. So we've had this interaction, then follow up within 48 hours with an email, a phone call. Hey, it was really great to meet you. I hope you enjoy the Eagles game on the weekend, what we connected on. So making sure that we do that. Social inclusion is a human right. And you all have the ability to enable that right to occur through connection. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy Jolly. So the 5 Bs of connection, I really enjoyed that and really love to see how simple it is to connect over our shared interests and our commonalities as opposed to our differences. How often do we find people segregated based on difference? So reiterating that great example and a visually powerful example as well. Our first special guest speaker this morning is a gentleman by the name of Brad Scott. Brad's a 3-time Paralympian, a triple Paralympic Games medalist, and a current member of the Australian Paralympic soccer team, the Pararoos. At the 2012 London Paralympic Games, Brad won 2 Paralympic medals, silver in the 1500 and bronze in the 800. Brad debuted for the Pararoos in the 2018 Asia Cup, where the team won silver. Brad currently works for APM Communities as a community capacity builder, developing inclusive communities in the southwest of WA. Above all other achievements, what I know about Brad is that he is a genuine knockabout good guy. When asked why social inclusion matters, Brad's response was, social inclusion can be more than just being part of a community. A whole new world of opportunity, innovation and productivity becomes accessible to all. Ladies and gentlemen, join in with me in welcoming the one and only Brad Scott.
Thank you, Denver, and thank you to the Inclusion Solutions team for allowing me to be part of today and being in front of you all here. And thank you to everyone else that's here because, as Chris said, it's amazing to see so many people wanting to make a difference in their community. Trying to connect everyone else is a big part of how people can really understand what they're capable of doing. And you've heard a bit about my achievements, which is great, and I'm very proud of them, but today it's not about that. It's not about what I've done, what medals I have, although I'm always a bridesmaid, always a silver medalist, never the gold. But we'll get away from that. Today, it's about the journey. It's about identifying certain things, it's about finding opportunities, it's about opportunities being presented to you. And I'm going to share you a little bit about that. But firstly, you heard that I have a disability. Obviously, being a Paralympian, I have to have a disability. So Denver, back up here, mate. He's getting worried now. Look at him, he's nervous.
Definitely wasn't expecting this.
Do you trust me?
Mostly.
Okay. Yeah. Jump right in, mate.
Sure.
Okay, so I want you to just do the actions that I ask you to do for me, okay? Facing the audience, please. Hold your left hand out, palm down. Okay, now can you rotate your hand as fast as you can? Rotate it as fast as you can. Come on, faster. You can do it fast. You're a bowler, mate. Come on. Okay, now open the hand up. One finger after another. Good. Good. So now on the right hand, can you do the same thing? As faster, come on. You're right hand, right?
Yeah.
Look at that, so much better.
Look at that go.
Yeah, yeah.
Look at that go.
Now same thing with the fingers. Good. Both hands out. Rotate as fast as you can together. Faster, come on. Now do the fingers thing, okay? Cool. Yep, cool. Now lastly, both hands up in the air. Wave to the audience.
Say that again.
Wave to the audience. Hey guys.
You got to wave back.
Okay, now let's go down to the feet. Left foot.
Yep.
Foot out. Rotate as fast as you can. Good. Nice. Right foot, can you do it? Both feet together.
Oh, jeez. Are you going to pick me up?
Okay, last thing. This is always the hardest to do, but I believe that you can do it. Stand on the edge of the stage.
Jump off.
Turn around. Now backflip into the audience. No, I'm joking. No, thank you very much, Denver. Cheers, mate. Okay, now the reason I got Denver up on stage was I want to show you all how my disability affects me. So, as Denver did, first thing, hand out, rotate as fast as I can on my left. I think I'm faster than you on the left. Okay, yeah. And then doing the same thing with the fingers, no problem there. Left leg, can do all that, no problem. But if I go to my right side, I try to rotate as fast as I can. And if I do the fingers, I can do it, but I've got to really concentrate. Come on, one more. There we go. Okay, cool. And then if I go to the leg, I literally have no rotation through that foot. I have a little bit of dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, but it's all from the hip. Now, as you can tell, what side is my disability on? All right side, okay, cool. Does anyone want to have a guess at what my disability is? You can just yell it out. Cerebral palsy, thank you very much. So my next question is, what's wrong with me? Thank you. That's always good to hear. I am a Dockers supporter, but but this is a perception. Whenever I had a conversation with someone, they would always be quite open and honest, because to be honest, when you see me, you don't see my disability. I'm very fortunate. I do have red hair and freckles as well, but that lets me down sometimes. But most people are pretty good about it. However, there are times where I have conversations, and as soon as I bring up that I have a disability or I'm a Paralympian, the next question is, so what's wrong with you? But that's the mental mindset. That's a shift that we've had as a society. It's groups like this that truly understand that a disability doesn't define who someone is. A disability doesn't change who you are. Sometimes it can be a detriment. Most of the times, to be honest, it can be an opportunity. Not just for the individual, but for the people in their lives as well. See, when I was born, everything was normal. Everything was all good. I was 3 years old, and my folks, they were starting to question, why was Brad crawling more than walking? Why did he choose to do that? So they took me to a physio. And straight away the physio said, your boy has cerebral palsy. And to be honest, my parents became so scared, they were shocked. They didn't know how to bring up a kid in this world with a disability. My dad was an army man. He was in the army for 9 years and he was tough, he was strong. Now all of a sudden he's seen his boy as being someone who's fragile. Because they didn't understand, they didn't know how cerebral palsy was going to affect the rest of my life. Thankfully, although they had their initial shock and the confusion, they started to do everything that they could to try to make sure that my disability wasn't going to be an excuse for my life. My dad would stretch me for half an hour every day. He'd pull me inside early. My two brothers would be playing outside, having fun, and I'd have to come in early and do some stretching. My dad actually built me a box at 15 degrees to put up against, I had to stand up against the wall. The box was like this, I had to stand on top of the box, and the whole thing was trying to push my heels down, because for those, like I showed you with my foot, I really have no movement at all through that foot in terms of that sort of a up and down motion. So it was all to build that, but also the length of my leg, because when I was younger, my leg on my right side was 4 centimetres shorter. And so this helped my body understand that it had some growing to do on the right side. And it was things like that that really provided me with the opportunity to be who I could. Now, my parents loved sport. My parents were sporty people, which is great, because sport was my passion. All I ever wanted to do was wear a baggy green, to become the next Adam Gilchrist. Now, come on, you should know who Adam Gilchrist is. If you don't, read up on he's Australia's best ever wicketkeeper batsman. Is that correct? Yes, thank you. Denver's a mad cricket guy, so I can always rely on him. And I just wanted to be Adam Gilchrist. But the older I got, the more I started to understand I had a disability. The more I started to get told I had a disability. The more I started to get put outside because I had a disability. I started getting selected last on teams. People started calling me names. I had names like Cripple. One was quite inventive, but Limp Biscuit, because of my limp, and I had red hair, so I won't get into it. But when kids want to make fun of someone, they can be quite inventive. And although it's just words, when you don't have self-belief, it can be quite detrimental. And I really struggled with self-belief. Self-belief was something that I found very hard to find. I had others in my life, my family, those that are close to me, trying to help build me up. But I had to make that next step. Sport was the only way where I felt like I could justify my worth to society. It was a thing that I felt passionate about. It was a thing that I felt like I could do better than most. Let's fast forward now to when I was 16 years of age. I loved playing football, loved playing cricket, loved playing any sport. Outside, I didn't care what it was, I'd play it. I was playing able-body football, or just your mainstream football, and my teammates did a stupid thing. They named me captain of the team. I'm not a leader. No way in the world was I a leader. I couldn't even last a quarter of the game. I think the reason they named me captain was I never shut up. I could just bark orders the whole game. So that was going to be the way. But I thought, okay, if I'm going to be a leader now, I need to start leading by example. So what's one thing that I can control that I need to improve on? And that was fitness. I couldn't even last a lap on the track, so I started to run more laps. Within a couple of months, I went from a guy who couldn't even finish 400 to a guy who could run 10K. Now, it wasn't the fact I couldn't run 10K, it was the fact I never actually applied myself. Once I started to apply myself, I started to realise, okay, Brad, you can actually start to do these things. Fast forward 2 more years, and this kid who was very vulnerable started to have a little bit more confidence, started to stand a little bit taller, started to show his worth to the community, because all of a sudden I was seen as being someone who was normal. My dad seen in the paper, the Australian Paralympic team had a talent search day. They had a talent search day in Bunbury, of all places. First time it's ever happened. My dad said, "Brad, let's go. Who knows what you can do?" I said, "No, I'm not good enough. No way in the world will I be good enough to ever be a Paralympian." But deep down, the reason I didn't want to go was this was for people with disabilities. I didn't want to be known as one of those people. I've worked my whole life to not be someone with a disability. I wanted to be over here with everyone else. I didn't want to be over here standing in a box with people with disabilities, getting looked down on, going, "Okay, we'll just give them a shot. I'll have some fun." I didn't want to be known as one of those, so I didn't want to go. Thankfully, my dad forced me to go. He literally threw me in the car and walked me in there and signed me up. I walked into this gymnasium. I just remember looking up, and there was people in chairs, people with walking sticks, people with all different types of equipment that I've never seen before. And I was 12 years old again. I felt so vulnerable because I'm like, I'm not one of these people. I'm not one of them. And that was my belief. That was how I was brought up. It wasn't anything to do with my parents. It's just because that's what my school life, that's what everyone else around me externally, that's the environment people were creating. The people with disabilities had to be over here. I didn't want to be over there. I wanted to be here, as I said. But the greatest thing happened that day was they started off with the beep test. And for those that know the beep test, it's quite punishing. It's just up and back running. How long can you last? And it gets faster and faster and faster. I finished the beep test and they said, "Brad, you've just broken the record for the beep test. How would you like to go to Canberra and train at the Australian Institute of Sport for a week, see if you like athletics?" So I gave it a shot and they said, "Hey, would you like to come back on scholarship?" So I moved to Canberra 6 months later. This is a kid from Bunbury who grew up with everyone telling him he wasn't good enough. There was a few people that told me I was, but it was mostly telling me I wasn't good enough. To now being at the centre of excellence for sport in our country. That was my dream. All of a sudden, my disability, the place that I didn't want to be, in the bubble that I didn't want to be in, was now my opportunity to become potentially a representative for Australia. For the next 18 months, I worked tirelessly with my coaches, with support staff, with my family, to try to qualify for the Beijing Games. I did that. I took 12 seconds off my time in 800 in 18 months to then qualify for Beijing, where in front of 90,000 people, a kid that was ranked probably 8th or 9th in the world, finished second and won a silver medal. Now that's pretty cool, right? It's great, and like I said, I'm not focusing on the performance or anything like that, but it's just to show that at the end of the day, I started to believe in myself more and more, and then once I started to accept my disability, I started to become open to the opportunities that were there. When I was a kid, my parents had to create those opportunities for me. My dad had to do the things that I didn't want to do because I couldn't understand it. I couldn't comprehend what my disability was. He took that ownership and he helped me, and my mum helped me to become the person I am today. If they didn't do that work then, there is no way in the world I would have ever made it to Beijing or anything else, because they created that opportunity. Once I was old enough to start to understand what my disability was, I could then take ownership, and which I did. And I'm so thankful for that, because I see myself as a lucky person, and I do believe you have to make yourself lucky, you have to create lucky opportunities. But back then, I couldn't do any of that. The people in my life had to do that, and they did. Thankfully, they did. Unfortunately, not everyone has that. And that's what people like you are here to do. Go and help people become who they can be by providing sometimes that glimmer of hope, that opportunity that they can be better than what everyone else is telling them. Provide them with the opportunity to become the person that they can become. Now, through all my sporting journeys, I've had some amazing things happen. I've always aimed for gold. I've always wanted to be the best. And it took me a long time to understand that it isn't the result that's important, it's the process. Now, I'm hoping this works. We'll see if this works. To give you a bit of an idea, at the Rio Games in 2016, I was ranked 2 in the world again. I was expected to win silver, if not gold. I went into that race confident, although I did injure myself 3 weeks beforehand, and the reason I'm telling you that is it will come up in a second. And I didn't sleep for more than probably 2 or 3 hours a night for the 3 weeks. And I was in severe nerve pain through my whole my left side of my body. But at the end of the race, the guy that was expected to finish second at worst finished 6th. I was embarrassed, I was upset, I just wanted to crawl into a ball and just feel sorry for myself on the track. But I realised those moments are important. Those moments you can still have positive impact. And even though I was feeling like crap, I just wanted to get out there. I knew that I was going to have an interview with the media after that race. And I went through my head, okay, what are you going to say? Do I make excuses? No, I don't want to be one of those people that makes excuses. Because my whole life, it's been about creating opportunity. And there are going to be people at home watching me, wanting me to be the best that I can be, and they're supporting me. I don't want to go and make excuses in front of them. Even though I feel it internally, I feel like crap, I want to make sure that I can help them. So this is what happened.
To all those kids back home with a disability, your disability doesn't have to be your excuse, it can be your greatest opportunity. Just like out here, you guys need to get out here because this is amazing. So don't use that as an excuse, use it as an opportunity, become a Paralympian and do yourself and your country proud. And thank you to everyone back home.
So that was my interview after my race. It's cool, right? Like, it's 17 seconds, I said a few words. That's not what it's about. What it's about is the messages I received after that. I had parents emailing me, messaging me on Facebook, commenting on the video saying, this video has been amazing, well, this interview was amazing, my kid is now running around the lounge room pretending to be Brad. My kid has CP and he wants to be a Paralympian. That was the worst result I have ever achieved. But that interview afterwards had a greater impact to that any medal or anything would have ever done. Because what that did was I utilised that opportunity to make sure that I left a positive impression, trying to motivate people to become the people that they can become. And that's what that was all about. That video had 80,000 views in 2 days. Again, that's cool, but the fact is I know single-handedly that at least impacted 5 people's lives because they've now found something that they want to do. Whether they pursue that or not, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that they've found something that motivates them internally, that they want to go out there and be. Everyone should be able to have that belief that they can go out there and be who they want to be. Because self-belief, although I think it's underappreciated in a lot of ways, it's the most valuable thing we can ever possess. Because if we have self-belief, anything is possible. You take away self-belief, everything becomes harder. Because it doesn't matter what's happening in your life. If you have self-belief, you can go out there and you can make change. You can do the things that you want to be. Because people can tell you no, but if you believe in it and you want to achieve it, you can still go out there and do it. Now, which brings me to retiring after Rio. I wanted to do for other people what everyone has done for me. They created a life for me to be able to become the best person that I can. I had people that believed in me even when I didn't. I had people that would support me and do the things that I didn't want to do to help me to get to where I wanted to be. Now that's why I want to do the same. I started coaching back home in Bunbury. I started doing things to help out other people in Bunbury. I wanted to give back to the community that gave so much to me. And then I had an opportunity through APM, Advanced Personnel Management. For those that don't know, they've received the contract to roll out the NDIS through most of WA. And on that, there are a few people throughout the state, about 30 of us, that are called community capacity builders. Basically, of sorts, we're almost like an inclusions officer. We go out there and we have conversations with people with disabilities and find out what's missing out there. What are the things that they want to do that they are struggling to achieve? What are the things that are missing in the community? What are the things that need to be improved in the community? What are the conversations that need to be had? Who are the people that we want to link? These are the things that I wanted to do when I came back home, and there was a perfect opportunity through APM. And now I get to go and do what I love. I get to go and do those things and help people, like I said, that just helped me. And is that coming around full circle or what? Like, how amazing is that? How amazing is that I get to do that as a role now to help the people, to help the community that helped me out so much. And although, yes, I am resourced to do it, that's where it's so good to see so many people in here that want to make that change as well, that want to be in the community and help out. Because the more people that do that, whether it's on a volunteer role or it's your paid opportunity, that's what we need as a community. We need people going out there and, as Chris said, being proactive, being approachable, willing to go out there and sometimes doing the things that we don't want to do because it's what the community needs, if that makes sense. Like, I know my dad, this is the last thing I'm going to say, but it's pretty important. I remember I played cricket and we started at 8:30 in the morning. My dad was working shift work, and this is the thing you never appreciate as a kid. He would work from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m, get us kids ready for cricket, take us out to cricket, go all day, 12:30, we'd go home, and then we'll go outside for a kick. He'd come out with us, make dinner, and then he's off to work again. He didn't sleep. These are things as kids you don't appreciate, but he was doing things he didn't want to do, but he wanted to be there for those good moments as well. He could have easily said, "No, get someone else, take you boys to cricket, I'm going to have a sleep." But that's what was so amazing. And this is my father, so that's why I'm very fortunate to have people like that in my life. But this is what people in community can do. Those things that sometimes we don't want to do to help the community be the best that it can be, or even an individual. So I know I've probably gone over time and I do apologise for that. But I just want to say once again, thank you to Inclusion Solutions, thank you to everyone for being here, and thank you for allowing me to share my story with you, and hopefully let's go and make some more positive impacts in the community. So thank you very much.
I did tell you he was good, Brad Scott. A couple of things that I took from that speech, Brad, mind over matter. I absolutely love the story of a kid who couldn't run 400 metres being able to smash 10Ks. I love that you also broke records in amongst that as well. The couple of other things, perseverance and opportunity, I think they really stood out really clearly in my mind. We all have an opportunity here to make systematic change. And for people with disabilities in amongst other marginalised populations, that is really important for us to do together. A great quote that I heard many moons ago, you can't be what you don't see. And I think when we think about any marginalised group, and I think about this with the Women's Big Bash, the WBBL, and I think when you didn't see that, you didn't realise how good it could be. Now that we see it, now that it's in our face, now that we see people like Brad, Kurt and others on the screen and getting airtime, you actually see what can be achieved. So a really great opportunity there for us to also think about how we change systems to include people with disabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, Brad Scott. Our second brilliant speaker for today is Jennifer Irvine. Jennifer is a public health researcher who's passionate about genuine community inclusion. Jen is currently completing a Masters of Public Health, focusing on the Kalamunda Learning Centre. Anyone from the hills? Good for you. Excellent, great to see. Jennifer has worked as a researcher at the Australian Indigenous Health Network, presenting at conferences on Indigenous health, and has lectured at ECU, Edith Cowan University, on health promotion as well. Jen is also the chair of the new Seniors Village Hub at Kalamunda. I know Peter Kenyon's in the room right at the back. Peter, great to see you here, and obviously intrinsically involved with the Village Hub there as well. That's a movement that aims to support people to live well in their homes and in communities into older age. When asked why social inclusion matters, Jennifer's response was, "Social inclusion is a basic right. It's important to me because I believe everyone deserves to be heard and to be seen, to have the opportunity to participate fully in society." Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Irvine.
Thank you, Kobe, also to that wonderful start to the day. I think music is a great connector, actually. I'm here to talk to you today about what's inside a samosa and why samosa has come to represent social inclusion for me and community connection. But I'm not talking about any old samosa, I'm talking about this one. I cooked this. It was the first samosa I'd ever made. And I have a story about why that does represent inclusion for me, but before I get on to that, I want to tell you about the place that it was made. And it's the Kalamunda Community Learning Centre. If you can just indulge me, I know we don't get comfortable closing our eyes, but just close your eyes for a moment and I want you to imagine this place. It's nestled in the hills, in natural bush, in an area close to Kalamunda Town Centre. There's lots of wildlife around, there's tall gum trees. As you enter the building, you're struck by an air of busyness and excitement because there are about 700 or 800 people in this centre, so you can imagine what that environment feels like. There are about 80 courses run through this centre. But it's not just the busyness and excitement that's in there and the energy, it's actually, there's a feeling of warmth and connection between all the people who are in there. So if you've got a picture of what that looks like, you can open your eyes. I wonder if any of you saw something like that in your mind. It looks a bit like a tin shed. It's actually an ex-golf clubhouse. And in the late 1970s, when it started as the learning centre, it was described as dilapidated back then. Not a lot has changed. The reality is, when you approach the centre, there's a sloping car park. There's lots of stairs to go into the centre. There is a ramp just down there, but you come to two doors that are pretty narrow and difficult to open. There's, just to add to the charm, some asbestos warning signs all around the building. It's full of second-hand donated furniture. It's got about, and it's run entirely, except for one paid creche staff member, it's run entirely by volunteers. No one seemed to be in charge in there. A couple of years ago when I first went there, it was run entirely on paper and cash systems. So I was looking for something to do a project for my master's on at the time, and I rang my supervisors and I said, I found it. I found this place I want to study. It is a wonderful place of community and connection. There's lots of happy people up there, all seem to be connected and doing things. I don't think anybody knows what they're doing up there though. It's fantastic, it's this little gem. So I called it a happy accident. And my supervisor said, I love the sound of that. Yes, please, go and do a proposal and come back to us. So I went away and I did a little bit of study and digging around, talked to a few people about the setup of this centre, and I rang them a couple of weeks later and I said to them, I need to change the title of my thesis a bit. It's actually got to be No Happy Accident. Because what I discovered was that there was a really clear strategy, and this was set up in 1977. Over those 40 years, there was a really clear strategy and really clear principles that had underpinned this centre. And I really hope people don't get too easily offended in here. I'm about to get a little bit crass and use the F word. There's no other way to describe it. But it was feminism. And it's a bit of a stupid joke, but it was actually the F word of the late 1970s. And actually, for the group of women that set it up, one of the things that they were most passionate about was inclusion. They really subscribed to the belief that feminism is good for everyone, where feminism improves the lot of women, it improves life for everyone. So they were really passionate about inclusion. This was a women's learning centre when it started, but it wasn't about shutting people out. There are other principles that underpin the centre as well, including that there was why I thought then no one seemed to be in charge in the centre. And the reason is because there's no single boss there. It's a shared decision-making group. So there were lots of principles that really fed into that. Now, I've mentioned that they were passionate about inclusion. If you remember that description of the reality of the centre and all the access issues, they were passionate about inclusion, but dealing with a lot of physical access issues. And Kiri's disappeared because I was going to point her out. But in an earlier Inclusion Solutions forum, she referred to a concept of if you can't deal with the pyramid, the physical, functional, and then social access issues, you should consider flipping it. So really focus on social inclusion, getting as many people as you can in the doors, and dealing with physical access issues, perhaps as they come up. They simply didn't have the funding to deal with those access issues. Now, how they did social inclusion, I think one of the biggest barriers for a lot of people accessing learning activities and social activities is cost. And this is something they dealt with really, really well. So one of the ways I mentioned, there are volunteers running the place. When I say there are volunteers running the place, every single person who signs up to that centre becomes a volunteer. So you can volunteer to be part of the organising group. You could be someone who works in the office, on the desk, answers the phone. You could be a volunteer tutor. All the tutors up there are not paid. You could sign up for one of those bigger roles. But even if you don't sign up for something, when you go to sign up for a course, you might think you're there to learn something, but actually you're also really there to be a part of running this huge organisation. And what they do, so when you sign up for a course, you also sign up to be part of a work group. And the work group tasks are really, really tiny, but meaningful. So some of them are things like take the class roll for the semester, wash the tea towels on Monday for the first term, fill up the tea and coffee canisters on Wednesdays for the first term. My first course was sweeping the back veranda Mondays and Wednesdays for the month of September. Tiny, tiny jobs. But as someone said to me, when you take all those tiny little things, they make one great big thing. And the great big lovely thing that is the Learning Centre, it simply couldn't function. So everyone takes on that volunteer role. And it achieves two things. It keeps the costs ridiculously low. So it's $4 a week for a class there. But it also makes people part of the centre right from the outset. So when you take on that task, suddenly, I really care about that back veranda. I check it all the time. Even not in September, it's my veranda. I've become part of that centre. I care about how it looks and how it's functioning. And it makes you a part of the team. So you're part of a work group team. You know that all those tiny little things add up to the reason why this runs so well. Now, one of the things that I think the people from the early days and has persisted through to now have always done so well is look for value in people. So as I said, when you sign up for a work group, but also when you go to the centre, they're very good there at asking you, what can you do? What skills do you have? What do you know? And when you have a question like that and a philosophy that is based so heavily on not what can you learn, but what can you teach or what can you do, you end up with a huge variety in the timetable. As I said, around 80 courses run through there by volunteer tutors, and that's what it looks like in a word map. There are 11 book clubs this semester, French, Italian, Spanish, Russian, Arabic, knitting, crochet, lace making, pottery, silversmithing, geology, write your life story, philosophy circle, Tai Chi yoga, and a lot more. If you can't find something to do on there, you possibly don't have any interest. There is always something that someone will do. But what I love about that is that has never come from a needs analysis. People at this place don't do a needs analysis. They do a what can you do analysis. So, and what that does is it creates value for a whole heap of the tutors who run these courses. And I want to just give you a quick story about someone who I think when you have this kind of philosophy, what it means to people. So part of my research, and I'm really privileged to be able to hear people's stories there. I'm very, very privileged to hear the stories that people have had through their lives. And one story I had that really, really struck me is of a man who retired and his marriage broke down and his kids left home all within a short space of each other. And he was on a slippery slope to that black hole of loneliness and depression. And someone said to him, why don't you go up to the Learning Centre and take a course? So he did, and he connected with people and he found friends, not just friends, but also acquaintances and people that he could wave to in the street. He was connected. And then someone said, why don't you teach a course? And he said, I'm a tradie, I don't teach a course. And they said, oh no, how about you teach a course, handyman skills for women? It's now called, more politically correct, home maintenance. But when he taught it, girl power. I like that's what it was anyway. So he taught that and he became this esteemed tutor. People loved him. He got to know more people. Someone then said to him, how about you run for one of our coordinator roles, stand for election? And he said, oh no, I don't do that. I don't do office work. It's not me. He was a people person by his own admission, but he didn't want to do this. But he was coaxed into doing it. With some trepidation, he put his name forward and he, by a really popular vote, he got one of the shared coordinator positions. And I could tell when he was telling me this story, he was really chuffed, very proud of himself. And I said to him, what did it feel like for you when that result came in? And with a huge smile on his face, he said, I really liked it. I felt like I mattered to people. And that for me, often when I tell that story, not in a big group like this, it brings me to tears because there was someone who we were going to lose to this awful thing called ageism, where we thank people for their years of service and paying tax, and then they're supposed to go off to this lovely land of retirement, and it's supposed to be wonderful. But for a lot of people, it's loneliness and isolation. And I say that in the context of the fact that statistics show that one of our highest age groups of suicide rates now is in age 65 and over. So we could have lost him. He is a person of value and we could have lost him because we just saw a tradie who had retired. But he's involved with the centre. It's a little bit of a cautionary tale for me at the moment because a few weeks ago he injured himself and he is unable to drive. And I went down to see him and I said, how are you going with everything? He said, everyone's been great. I've got lots of friends and people come pick me up and take me to the shops and everything like that. Everything's great. But I have come to know the true meaning of loneliness. So for me, it really rings in my head, I think, the fact that when I spoke to one of the founding members of the Learning Centre, she said to me, inclusion and connection are not passive things. You can't put a welcome mat out and open the doors and say, we're here, come on in. You have to reach out into the community, you have to go out to where the people of need are and you have to bring them in. And the other thing for me with that story is it's an ongoing concern. We have to be vigilant. It's not a one-off, make a connection. You have to keep focusing on keeping those connections there. So what the heck does this all have to do with this samosa? Well, I was a newbie to this centre and I didn't really get what was going on in this centre. I signed up for some Indian cooking classes and I went along. I've been to other cooking classes. There's a certain expectation you have, so I went along. And on the day I went in, there was a young Indian lady there who had, I love that question we ask, and they're very good at the centre. They see someone has this young Indian neighbour move in next door and they say, oh, can you cook? We need an Indian teacher, Indian cooking teacher. That'd be great. So she got connected into the centre anyway, but she turned up, she didn't know what she was doing. She'd never done this before. She was new to the area, no family in the area. Her husband is a FIFO worker, so no real support around. Anyway, I turned up to the first class and there were no recipe sheets. There were some ingredients. She wasn't really sure what we were going to do with them, and her 3-year-old daughter was there. So I'm standing there processing the OH&S issues and the lack of professionalism and structure and what is going on. For my $4 a week, I better be getting my value for money. So I watched and we got a lesson in how to make a samosa and I got a lesson in social inclusion because I watched as she said something about the recipe sheets and someone said, don't worry about that. Tell me the ingredients and I'll write them down and I'll email them to everyone. Everyone give me your email and I'll send them out to everyone. She said, I couldn't get many ingredients at the shops as Coles and Woolies didn't really have what I wanted. Someone said, oh no, the Canning Vale supermarkets. I'll go down there for you and I'll get them. I'll collect money from everyone and do that. Or you can come with me. Shall I pick you up and we'll go on a little outing and do that together? And then there was the matter of her daughter and someone said, oh, well, no, because you're a volunteer tutor and we really want these cooking lessons. The centre will organise a volunteer babysitter to come in and sit in the next door room with your daughter while you teach. But this week, I've got some paper and pens here and we'll draw that. Someone passed me some samosa pastry. I'm going to roll some shapes out. So I had this kind of epiphany and I wanted to walk over to her at one point and I said, oh, just to let you know, they're not going to let you fail. You're not leaving here, like after one lesson, not being part of this. You're part of this community, that they're going to make sure of that. And I thought it really was just a lovely lesson in how people who kind of quite humble, just going about their business. One of the final parts of that story was someone came up to me after and said, I heard you're doing a project, what's it on? And I said, social capital and social inclusion. And they said, what's that? And I said, oh, it just happened here. So, but I love samosas, but I love a good analogy just as much. So for me, I kind of came up with what's happening there? What's the analogy that I can take from that? There are some kind of key ingredients to a samosa. Potato forms the bulk of a samosa, and for me, that is the group of people. When a group of people come together, especially a group like this at the Learning Centre, a group of humble, unassuming people get together and make something happen. The P's for me represent the principles that float around in amongst everything that's going on in there. The spices, of course, are the attributes and the talents that everyone brings to that centre. Huge varieties, you can see, makes a very unique flavour. And the pastry, again, 2 fairly simple ingredients, or maybe 3: flour, water and a bit of ghee. Coming together, the pastry represents all the connections that people make, because that's actually what keeps the organisation strong. It's 42 years old now. A lot of the founding members aren't there anymore. The principles are embedded in everyone and inculcated, really. When you take courses there, you get these lessons in social inclusion, you understand how it works. And when you get those ingredients right and you get the temperature of the oil right by including everyone in your community, people are fed and people are nourished. And just to seal that analogy, Denver and his team have organised for some samosas for everyone. So you can have a think about this and be nourished, please.
Jen, I really love the analogy of a samosa. By itself, any one ingredient is obviously just one ingredient, but you put it together and it builds a really rich community. And I think today's a great example of that. We've got people from all walks of life, from all parts of WA. We've got people of all abilities and all backgrounds, and I think that really ties in very well. I love the analogy with the asset-based movement as well, really finding out what people's strengths are and not judging people based on the book they wear, the clothes they wear, and what they can't do. Really, really important. I think the other thing that really stood out to me was inclusion and connection, and not passive things. It takes meaningful effort, but when we do this, we can do it really well. So we can do this at our workplaces, we can do it at our sporting clubs, we can do it in our neighbourhoods. It's not restricted to just people at the Kalamunda Learning Centre. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Jen Irvine. Now that you're fed and nourished, I'd like to introduce to you our third speaker. Our third speaker today is a gentleman by the name of Paul Holliday. Paul is the founder of the Human Excellence Project. Has anyone come across the Human Excellence Project? Couple of hands. Excellent. Couple of hands. That's great. Paul specialises in the field of self-empowerment. Through the Human Excellence Project, Paul takes people on a journey of discipline and freedom. Paul gives people direction and motivation so that they can make meaningful and lasting improvements in their own lives. Paul empowers people regardless of who they are and what they do. When asked why social inclusion matters to Paul, his response was, "Social inclusion matters to me because being included positively affects a person's self-esteem and confidence, while giving individuals purpose and meaning." Please join me in welcoming Paul Holliday.
Life. It's an incredible thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing, and we're all blessed to have one of these organic structures that's got touch, taste, we can see, we can feel, we can love. You're tasting that samosa right now, and you know, we sometimes take for granted the simple things in our life. But each and every one of us has a gift to share with other people, with our community, a gift to share with one another. But we have a problem in society. We have a problem with depression, with anxiety, with suicide. We have people who are lost. These people are told that they need to toe the line. They need to keep it safe. We're told that we need to play the game in a certain way, that we've got to get that job, we've got to work really hard, we've got to aim for retirement, we've got to get ourselves in debt. And we play this game and we get lost. I'm here to say that life's not about that. Life's about adventure. Life's about taking risks, about getting out of your comfort zone, about challenging yourself to do things, to inspire others, to let them follow in your footsteps. I started the Human Excellence Project about 10, 11 months ago now, shortly after a traumatic event in my own life. My dad rang me 5 years ago, and it was one of them phone calls none of us want to take. He said to me, "Paul, the cancer's back, and this time it's terminal." And I was 40 years of age at that time, and I thought I had everything in place. And as I dropped to my knees and I was crying my eyes out, and I was like, not again. I lost my best friend in my teenage years. My stepdad was murdered when I was early 20s. And I'd lost touch with life and society. And here I was at 40, I was about to lose my dad, my everything, my hero. It really took me on a powerful journey of self-development. When I got that news, the blinkers came off. I got to see the society I was growing up in. I got to see that my uncles and aunties and my family, and through no fault of their own, were following this system where they were all aiming for this ending. They were drinking too much, they were eating the wrong foods, they were surrounding themselves with the wrong people. And then I looked at my friends around me in the football club I was playing in, and it was the same story. There was no plan, everyone was winging it. Then I looked at the people who were working for me at a building company, and I looked at the guys who were on our site, and they were struggling with depression, anxiety. They were addicted to one thing or another, or alcoholics. Their families were falling apart, and I looked around and seen this was happening everywhere. And the final thing I did is look at myself, and I wasn't happy with what I seen. I was overweight at the time, I was eating the wrong foods, I was drinking way too much, I was spending too much time away from my family. I was aiming for money constantly, thinking that would bring me happiness. Over these 5 years, my dad's cancer just got worse and worse, and it took the things off him that we all take for granted. One thing, it took food off him, it took taste. It took his most precious possession, his speech. He always had the right answer to everything. He was an amazing guy. Unfortunately, on the 8th of August last year, my dad lost his battle with cancer. But over that 4 years, we learned some new tips and techniques to improve my own life and get me ready for his death. My dad learned to meditate, he learned yoga. And on that day, he knew he was about to pass. He gave us all a fist pump. We went in, we gave him a hug, we told him we loved him. He put his hands on his chest and he meditated to his death. And it was one of the most powerful moments of my life. I was so proud to see him pass over with such dignity. When I came back from the UK, I wrote the words, the Human Excellence Project, and I thought, I can't do this no more. I can't play this game. I thought, I've got to try and empower others to go on the journey that I went on. The journey of self-empowerment, the journey within. I thought, how am I going to do this? The mentors that I surrounded myself with, they had one thing in common. They had a morning routine that was beneficial to themselves. And I thought, right, I'm going to do this. So I committed to doing 2 hours for me every morning. So I got up at 4 a.m. and I was getting exercise in, I was getting nutrition in, meditation in, and then I would jump into cold water. And it started with just myself. Slowly, friends started to join me. And it started to have an impact in people's lives. I could see that by getting up early and taking control of your day, things started to work out for you. As the months went on, or the weeks went on, should I say, it started to grow. I posted it on social media. I started a Facebook page. And people would come down with their own problems, with their own traumas. And the thing that happened was magic. They would come down, they would meditate with us, they would jump into the ocean together and all think we're crazy. But then afterwards we'd go for a coffee and we would share our traumas sober. And then the people who would come, they would realize that it wasn't just them, it was everybody else. We were all sharing this thing. Life is tough, but we need to take control of it. You need to have self-belief. This morning's dip was my 307th consecutive dip. I knew I had to commit to this so that people had somewhere to go. Someone would always be there when they turned up. And over the past 10, 11 months, we've had more than 4,000 people jump in the ocean with us. We're having healing every day. Last month, in the depths of winter, on a freezing cold morning, we had 60 people turn up, each of them with their own story. But these are strong people. These are the people that got up. They didn't press the snooze button. They didn't roll back over into their warmth. They got up and attacked their day. They then share it on social media and invite their friends to come. We've got a community of strong people. The Human Excellence Project is built upon the 7 human needs. The first is certainty. We need to feel comfortable, secure, stable, protected in our lives. We get this by knowing where we're going and what we're doing. I'm a life coach and I teach people how to have a clear vision. Because what I've noticed, people who are depressed and anxious, they're lost. What does that mean? They haven't got a map for their own life. So by giving them this map for their own life and giving them a clear vision, they know where they're going. They're not lost anymore. And then they commit to themselves. They get great growth from that. Then we need significance. We need to feel important. We need to feel special. We need to feel respected. Then we need variety in our lives. We need to be challenged, take risks. We need to get excitement in our lives and some surprise. Connection and inclusion is one of the most important things that we do. To bring this group together and for everyone to feel part of it is one of the most powerful things. People have got somewhere to go. Loneliness is one of the biggest killers. We need to invite people to start joining communities and start to open up. Stop suppressing what they're hiding and start to share with each other. We need love. Recently we had a guy who's close to Inclusion Solutions, David Taylor, come down for a dip. David was suffering with a brain tumour. He was worried about his operation. We invited him down to do breath work with us and meditation. And for the 2 weeks prior to his dip, he was having these seizures. But when he came down to us, they went from 20 a day to 2 a day. And he put it down to the love and connection that he got from the group. It was powerful. His operation went incredibly well. We focus on growth, developing, learning, strengthening ourselves, learning from each other's skills. But getting out of your comfort zone is where you need to grow. We don't learn anything when we stay within the things we know. And then finally, contribution, to give. To give without receiving. To leave your mark and to be of service to other people. It's a massive part of what we do. I'd like to introduce you to 2 of our members. We've had so many members now, but these are 2 big stories for me. Annalise joined us back in December 2018. She came down, the first thing she did, she came up to me and she said, "Why are you doing this? You're mad." I said, "You'll see, you'll feel it soon." And she jumped into the ocean at Hillary's Boat Harbour and we swam to the beach. And then we went and shared a coffee, and then she opened up and she drove from Kalamunda every day. She'd been on antidepressants for 7 years. She was struggling with things that had gone on in her own life. But within a month, she came off them antidepressants. She started to take control of her day. She committed to herself. She's grown so well over the past few months, and now she's in a loving relationship. She's not doing any counselling now or seeing any therapists. She's doing all the work herself. She even teaches her kids to meditate and do mindfulness in the school that she works in. She's amazing. Then there's Keith. Keith is a 31-year-old Irish man who struggled with debilitating anxiety and depression for many years. Coming from a tough background, having a lot of trauma in his life, he messaged me through Facebook and he was saying, "Paul, I need this in my life. I need to be included in something that means something." He'd been suicidal in his past, And it took a few to and fro's with text messages, and then he couldn't come down because his anxiety was so bad. But the day he did, which was only about 7 weeks ago now, it changed his life forever. He jumped in the ocean with us, we swam to the beach, and then he felt that he wasn't judged. And he opened up and shared his story. Within 5 days, he sent me a message, and the message said, "Thank you very much, Paul, for the ice bath we had done and the bushwalk." And he said during the breath work, he said it was the first time he told himself that he'd loved himself and that that was okay. And then since then, he's now looking to study to help kids deal with their own traumas. This is a powerful group of change. We're focusing on mental health. It seems to be a major problem we have in society. So we've been doing, every 2 weeks, we're doing free men's mental health events where we're inviting men to come down to learn not only information about what's going on with mental health, but also we teach them new tools, new tips, new techniques, meditation, breath work, loads of different things to take into their everyday life. And at the end of every event, we invite them down to the beach the next day. The guys who've been coming down have seen massive change, and there's not a day goes by now that I don't get a message saying this has changed their life. Myself and my partner Melanie have funded this whole project ourselves for the past 12 months. And we're looking for funding, we're looking to get into corporate bodies, we want to get up to the FIFOs and help as many people to become included, to start believing in themselves so they can get this massive change in their lives. We're also looking to start doing teenage camps, inspire youngsters by setting up a mentor group. We've got some incredible people joined our group now. We've got multi-millionaire businessmen who want to give their time for free to these teenagers, so we're going to do camps and we're going to teach them that's cool to do what we do. Joe Dispenza says it well, that thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body. And what you think and what you feel is who you become. We're all in charge of what we think and what we feel. But it takes courage to get up in the morning and come and do this. So all of you come tomorrow morning, 5:15 a.m., Hillary's Boat Harbour, where we'll do a short meditation, we'll jump in the ocean, and then we'll help you change your life. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paul. Some great stories there for Annalise and Keith in particular. I was invited by David Taylor, a good friend of mine, to actually go down to the meditation a couple of months ago. And I was a little bit apprehensive because Dave said, look, you know, it's incredible and this is the power that it's had on my journey. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go along. 100% I'll be there the week before your operation and I'll come along. The morning of the operation, Paul got the group together. About 60, 65 people got up at 4 a.m. specifically because Dave Taylor had to be at hospital at 6 a.m. So specifically, this group of people got together and meditated around Dave's cause. It was so powerful to be in a group of 60 people, many of them strangers, hugging, just in a group hug for Dave. I went and visited Dave on the second day after his operation. And I said to him, how did it go? And he said, I actually genuinely think the Human Excellence Project has supported me to get through this operation. The Thursday before that, we were planning a potential funeral. And Paul knows that. Really, really powerful story there. I love the words preventative and proactive. Inclusion WA, our sister organisation, shared on their social media last night a post around social prescribing. And that's exactly what the Human Excellence Project is about for me. So thank you once again, Paul Holliday. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Paul. Our final speaker for today is Stephen Morrison. To say that Steve is passionate about mental health and wellbeing is an understatement. Steve's worked in a variety of national and state-based roles for over 15 years now for organisations such as Headspace, Lifeline, Children's Protection Society of WA, of Australia, have I got that wrong? Victoria, there you go. Steve's facilitated national training programs in suicide intervention and prevention, in crisis counselling, mental health and wellbeing, in resilience, grief and loss, in public speaking and leadership, just to name a few. Steve's also worked with, comforted, and provided support to thousands of people in distress as a crisis and school counsellor. When asked why social inclusion matters, Steve's response was, "Without social inclusion, people can feel lonely and isolated. There is nothing more special in life than sharing a deep connection with those that we love." Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Steve Morrison.
Kaya. 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 Hi, my name is Steve Morrison. Guys, I can't tell you enough how excited I have been. Almost nervous, but excited to speak to you today. The first thing I want to ask, we'll go there. The first thing I want to ask, is it possible for people to be in a crowded room and feel disconnected and lonely? Put your hand up if you say yes. And what a tragedy. And that is so sad. So from some of my background, I've been a crisis counsellor at Lifeline, and the three main phone calls that we received, and for me the most tragic, is the person that calls that said, "I have spoken to a few people over the last couple of months but had a connection with nobody. So all I wanted to do tonight was tell you something about myself, and would you do something for me? Could you tell me something in reply about you?" And there's a thing with being a counsellor that we don't share a lot, but there's a power in sharing. And what's missing if we're feeling alone in a crowded room is connection. And so the theme that joins us presenters together today is that connection. And what something powerful like this to bring everyone into a room as we can connect. And thank you to Kobe for doing that. The intro to say Kaya, to say hello, to celebrate that culture that we often miss. I'm going to spend the next 4 hours, the next 20 minutes, speaking about how do we connect with people who are the hardest to connect with, the people that are in the most distress. As an example of distress, there is nothing okay with putting my little boy, when he's been on the planet for 6 hours, in a Collingwood scarf. A St Kilda scarf would have been better. And what you will notice is the one thing that he has in common with a Collingwood supporter is he has no teeth. Distress wreaks havoc on our functionality. And if I go back to those calls at Lifeline, people would often call up and say, "I've got this problem, can you tell me how to fix it?" Now, if I can connect with that person in a meaningful way, their distress will reduce and their functionality will increase, and in about 30 minutes, they will say to me, "I've got a few solutions." And I will say, "Awesome, let's chat about that." So as our distress level goes up, our functionality goes down. And why I wanted to give this talk today was to give you as many skills as I could in 20 minutes as to how we can connect with people who are distressed and how we can reduce their distress. When I say functionality, I don't mean physical functionality. Distress does some things to the body that takes the blood and oxygen away from our brains and puts it into our muscles and into our other energy systems so we can run, we can fight, and sometimes we can freeze. Executive functioning is that part of our brain that allows us to think logically, think laterally, to have perspective, to solve problems, to think creatively, to think innovatively, to access our short and long-term memories. If we can't access our short and long-term memories, we can't access our coping strategies. So our role as caring people is to give people that access by reducing their distress. I want to give you an example of executive dysfunction. And before I put this photo up there, I will say that I'm working really closely with that person to make sure that they're okay. And no, it is not okay for me to grow my hair for 3 years or to try to dress up with my cat like my cat. And the reason I did that, I'm not even going to go into why I did that, you don't need to know. So, if people are distressed, and by distressed I mean significantly grieving, experiencing trauma, suicidal, or some of the hardest people to reach when they're distressed are people that are in rage and anger. And here are your barriers. A perceived sense of burdensomeness. When we're trying to connect with people who are distressed, they feel that they are having a significantly negative impact on our world, our wellness, so as they don't want to connect with us. There is a perceived sense of isolation. No matter how hard I try to engage you, I don't want to put that burden on you because I feel so far away. A slide that I would normally put up is that in this process, first and foremost, if I am distressed, there is only me. And then when you come along and you try to engage me in a caring and meaningful way, there is you and me. And if I accept that invitation and you are able to do some of the things that I'm going to describe in a second, then it becomes us. And when it is us, that's when we can do the work. The antidote to distress is comfort. I've run stacks of workshops around reducing distress. And when I've said to people, without showing this slide, what is the antidote to distress, people would say relaxation. And I go, give that a try. If you've got someone that's raging, that's really, really angry, and you say, just relax. What people who are distressed need is not to relax. They need to feel soothed, nurtured, and comforted. How we do that is through compassion and empathy. I would normally ask people, who agrees with that's the right thing to do? Compassion and empathy, the two most powerful human emotions to connect. Put your hands up. The two most powerful human emotions that I've been able to use to reduce, I don't know how many people's distress. How many people that I've spoken to who have been suicidal and alone and disengaged and isolated, and those two things alone allow me to reduce that distress. Now, when I say to people, what is the definition of compassion, that's a struggle. And people would often say love, and I think that's close. And I would prompt them to say that if someone we loved was in pain, what would we want? And they're going to say, for that pain to go away. So the definition of compassion is the desire to alleviate the suffering in other people. And I want to add a couple of things to that. With selfless kindness, without needing anything in return, and without wanting anything from that person. The next thing is empathy, because I can't be compassionate without being empathetic. If I had a superpower, my superpower would be empathy. And what I mean by that is that I am deeply fascinated with the experience of what it is like for someone else to be in their world. And that might be something low-key. Is the blue that I see the same blue that you see? Is the sound that I hear the same sound that you hear? And is the pain that you feel the same pain that I feel? I currently work in a school as a school counsellor, and I am often saying to the kids that I'm counselling, let me know what it's like to be you. not very often they say it's awesome because they are teenagers. So the definition of empathy, if compassion is the desire to alleviate the suffering in others, empathy is the desire to understand the suffering of others in a kind and selfless way. I want to speak a little bit about anger now. I used to work in hospitality. So I've worked in mental health for about 15 years. And when I left school, I worked in hospitality. And when I worked in hospitality, I did some security work. And you will go, that makes sense because Steve is massive. Or you go, Steve could probably talk pretty well. So I was working one night at a club in Canberra and it was about 3 a.m. The club closes in 2 hours and it was a good night. Everything was running pretty smoothly. And all of a sudden, someone stands out of the up inside the club and runs out. And one person does that, 2 people do that, the rest of the club runs out. And I go, my finish at 5 a.m. probably looks more like finishing at 8 o'clock in the morning, depending on what's going on out in the car park. So I wander out there slowly. And there's a huge crowd of people, and what I notice is there's a guy in the car park screaming. He's holding a brick, he's got blood on his hands, and he's smashing the brick into the ground, and he's smashing the brick into cars. And I'm thinking, jeepers, something real bad's happened. So I'm walking through the crowd, and I get stopped when I get to the front by, I think, one of his friends, and the friend says, "Where are you going?" And I go, "I'm going to go and have a conversation with him." And they go, "Nah, we don't talk to him when he's like that." Who in the room's felt angry before? Anger is a really misunderstood emotion where on the one hand, we want to be left alone, and I believe primarily because people are scared of anger and don't understand it. And I think, and I'm going to talk about the 3 drivers of anger that people need to be connected with when they're angry to decrease that distress so they don't do anything harmful for themselves or other people. And he was doing both. So I walk past this crowd, walk towards the guy, he looks at me and he goes, "Human target, this is better than cars and asphalt." Holds the brick up and goes, "What do you want?" And I said, "What's happened?" And he said, "What do you care?" And I said, "Whatever's happened must have been really painful." And as I'm talking, the brick's going down, and he says to me, "I got a text message that I shouldn't have got." I said, "What did it say?" He said, "It was from my girlfriend telling someone else that I wasn't home and that they could come around." And I said, "That sucks." And he dropped the brick and he crumpled down into a ball and started crying. His friends that stopped me from going over there ran over and gave him a hug. Another story, I was going for a walk in a suburb quite close to this, and I was just walking down the street and a guy comes crashing out of his house. Had a baseball bat and a really scary dog, Shih Tzu or something. He says to me, the baseball bat, dog's here, and he's holding it, looking really agitated. "Have you been ringing my doorbell?" I said, "No, what's going on?" He said, "My doorbell hasn't stopped ringing for the last 3 days." In my head, I was thinking, gee, you got to get that fixed. I said to him, "That's awful. Can you still hear it ringing now?" He said, "Yes." I said, "So I imagine over the last 3 days you haven't slept and all you've heard is this doorbell ringing. It must be driving you crazy." He goes, "It is. And if you find out who's doing it, tell them to stop," and charged back into his house. Two things. I made a phone call to the police to ask them to go around and do a welfare check because he was probably having auditory hallucinations. And if that was the case, that is enough to cause someone significant distress and therefore some harm. Second thing, if I responded to his emotional state of, "Are you ringing my doorbell?" and I go, "No, I'm not," then we're going to get some sort of conflict. But the message isn't anger. The message is connect with the pain, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. The third story, and last on anger. I pulled up at a service station in rural Western Australia once, and I had a friend with me who knows me pretty well, and I saw just beside the service station there was a house and there's a fence. There was a guy backed up against the fence with his arm folded like this, and there was a woman standing in front of him screaming at him, pointing in his face. He wasn't saying anything. She's pointing in his face. She's saying super nasty stuff. And I've turned to my person that was sitting next to me in the car, and they said to me, "Don't go over there." I said, "I'll see you in a second." So I went for a walk over there, right? And I say to the guy, not the woman, I say to the guy, "Hi mate, what's going on?" In kind of that tone, enough to get his attention. And the reason I wanted to get his attention, because I know if people are angry and they can't tell you, so they can't use their words, they will show you. And if he's backed up against the fence, I'm like, oh, this is not looking very good. So I go, "Hey mate, what's going on?" He looks at me going, "Oh yes, a male target. I'm going to smash this guy." I said, "That sucks." And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "What's happened?" She's walking off at this stage, right? And I might be a little bit crass here. She's walking off, starts abusing me, going, "You homo, small, fill in the blank, homo, small, white trash, this and that." I was like, wow, you're perceptive. How did you know that stuff? And so I say to the guy, I said, "What's happened?" He says to me, "I've never hit her." I go, "That's really important to you, right?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "What caused that?" He said, "Her drug and alcohol use." I said, "How are you doing?" He goes, "I'm struggling with that too." We had a chat for about 15 minutes. Really interesting guy. I would love to know the outcomes to all these stories, but I don't. Just that I hope that with that intervention, that distress level goes down and that gives him a break to process, regather, come back and re-enter into that. So here's a little bit more about anger. Anger is a secondary emotion. It cannot come first. It has to be based on fear. I am scared, therefore I need to protect myself or someone else. Shame. I am not worthy. I don't deserve love, care and support. Or I am weak. Or pain. I am hurting. I can't deal. And I don't want to hear that right now. If you can connect with that, anger goes away. I've got about 50 more anger stories that I could tell. Have I made my point? Yeah, cool. The reason I use anger as an example of distress and how to de-escalate distress, I could have chosen grief and loss, I could have chosen suicide, but anger is the prickliest one. But often the one that resonates the strongest with us, that if we can decrease that distress, that anger goes away, therefore the harm goes away. And same is true. I have a minute. I'm going to do a quick something on suicide. I've done suicide, crisis intervention and suicide intervention has been what I've done the most of. And inevitably, someone in a group would say, why do people die by suicide? And I say, pain. Pain causes suicide. People don't want to die. It's not like I wake up in the morning and go, that sounds like a good idea. It's not even that I go, I'm in so much pain right now. If I had a cure, versus if I still killed myself, I would still kill myself. It's not the case. So if we can decrease that pain and distress, the harm goes away. Willing, able and available. To be a caring person in the community, you need to be willing, able and available. I see a really kind, caring and compassionate audience. So I think you're all willing. I know we're relatively time poor, but we all have a bit of time. So I think you are available sometimes. It's the ability thing where people get stuck. I've seen on a number of occasions people in the community who are devastated and distressed, and thousands of people walk past them. And I don't think it's because they don't care. I think it's because they're scared of what to say, what will happen, and if I don't know what to say, I choose not to do anything at all and hope someone else will. So that my talk today was literally to hopefully empower you all to be more able. And I want to leave you with this quote. The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose is to give it away. A lovely gift that we can all give is kindness, care and compassion. And the meaning of that is to use it in action. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Steve, thank you very much. Compassion and empathy. Many of us in this sector deal with that on a daily basis. So hopefully that's given you a few tips to take from today's presentation. So just a bit of a recap today. Christy took us through the notion of connection. Connected with 180 or 190 or how many ever people we have in this great room today. Through one story of art, Christy showcased how a similarity can actually bring us all together. Brad spoke a bit about systematic change. The perseverance and opportunity, I think, were the key things for me out of that, and how we can all play a part in ensuring that communities are more accessible to people with disabilities, to people from all other marginalised groups as well. Jennifer spoke about the Kalamunda Learning Centre, incredibly unique opportunity for people to connect based on their skills and based on their strengths and passions. I really love that analogy with the samosa. Yummy too, right? Paul obviously took us through the whole notion of human connection and the incredible journey that the Human Excellence Project has taken other people on, some of whom are here today. And finally, Steve, around connection, compassion and empathy, and how to de-stress and how to distress people that are in a position of anger. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our special guests once again, and our guest speakers, and I think it's pivotal that we put our hands together for all of them right now. I'd also like to take this opportunity to recognise the Bendat Community Centre. Mark Fitzpatrick and Karen are always a pleasure to work with, so if you're looking for a great facility, we recommend the Bendat Community Centre. Beyond Bank, our partners, thank you for all your opportunity and the partnership throughout this year. It's been an incredible journey to work with you guys. Phil, our photographer, thank you, mate. Phil will be hanging around for some photos for those of you that have missed out so far. Please make sure you grab one and tag us in on your posts again. That's Inclusion Solutions WA. To G and the team, thank you very much. As always, as I mentioned before, this forum will be an ongoing resource. We'll make it available in 2 to 3 weeks, and that'll go live on our our YouTube channel as well. So if you Google Inclusion Solutions YouTube, you'll be able to find all the guest presenters from today and the whole forum. I'd like to thank our board at Inclusion Solutions, our CEO Paul Flay, and our incredibly hard-working team, Christy, Adam, Jehu, Amy, Kiri, Tom, Kira, Grace, Rachel and Denise. I'd also like to thank our volunteers for today. You've done an incredible job making sure everyone's in on time and all of that. And I guess at this point in time I also want to recognise 2 people within our team in particular, and that's Amy, who's standing up in the green, and Jehu. So if you guys wouldn't mind standing, please, Jehu, and we might put our hands together for these guys. Forums like this take an incredible amount of thought, consideration and time, and these 2 have absolutely devoted their attention to this, so much so that past midnight last night they were working on things for today. So thanks very much, guys. Just a quick one, our next forums, we've got a couple other opportunities. Our next social inclusion forum will take place on the 6th of November. We've already got 2 great speakers lined up for that. Dr. Anne Ali, an expert in counter-terrorism and also the federal member for Cowan. And John Armstrong. For those of you in the disability sector, John Armstrong is second to none. One of the founding fathers of the social role valorisation movement. We're really lucky to have John with us in Perth on the 6th of November as well. And just one other shout out, I know Maria and Peter are in the room today from the Bank of Ideas, as are several staff from Befriend as well, some organisations that we're partnering with to bring you Reconnecting Lives, and that's a forum around addressing loneliness in communities around WA. That particular forum will take place on the 22nd of October in this very venue. You've all got it in your bags. There's a flyer for both of those sessions there. Now, I recognise that you guys have driven 7,513 kilometres to be here, so I want to wish you guys a safe 7,513 kilometres home as well. The festivities are not over, so please connect, collaborate and celebrate. And just on a final note, I might get Georgie Nicholas from our partners Beyond Bank to come up, and we've got a little prize draw, lucky door draw. So, no, I think I'll hold it and you draw, I think, Georgie. That's the way we'll go. So first prize, so this is for 2 tickets to the Fremantle Dockers. And the winner is Lisa Cornelius from a wonderful organisation called Plan in Midland. So Lisa, well done. Our second prize, and what I might get you guys to do is come and see Amy Perry at the front, and we'll organise that. So that's for a hoodie, a water bottle and a t-shirt from Manchester United Football Club. Alan, I believe that might be Alan Singer from the Wacker. Alan Singer, we've got your details. And the third prize and final prize for today is a t-shirt from Manchester United Football Club as well. And that is Ashara Wills. Well done, from the city of Stirling. So, Ashara, we've got your details as well. Thanks, Georgie. Second, sorry. So without further ado, that brings to a close the 5th Social Inclusion Forum, and we look forward to having you guys at the next one in November, if not at October as well. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.